Hey, friends.
Hello, everybody.
And welcome to week 5. Is it 5? Week
Yes.
5 of Bachelor in Paradise recap. The right reasons.
Hi, everyone. If you are a podcast listener and you're joining us for the first time, thank you. We appreciate you.
And if you're a YouTube viewer joining us for your first time, thank you. We appreciate you too.
Also that.
Will you just give, I think we had a couple of comments last week that were kind of asking about, like, the angle at which we look at the show. Can you, as I pull up my notes...
What's our deal?
Yeah. Will you just, like, tell... So if anybody is a newer listener, they kind of know what our POV is. And if you're here with us, please say hello if you're here live, or if you're catching the recording, say hi in the comments. Hit that thumbs up button. It helps us know you're here. It helps other people find the show.
Helps the YouTube algorithm.
It helps the YouTube.
Okay, so our angle with this show around The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and subsequently Bachelor in Paradise. Well, first of all, we're super honest all the time, and I'll start off by saying I'm exhausted. I've gotten very little sleep in the last day, but I'm all fired up on coffee and I'm ready to go. So, what we do, our purpose here on the show is, so Rachel and I, we run a company called Wright Wellness Center, where we help people have happier, healthier relationships by teaching therapeutic tools, which will help you have a more successful relationship, which is scientifically proven. We teach them in a fun and easy to understand. Approachable. Thank you. That's the word my tired brain won't get out. Fun and approachable about your relationship, because relationships are awesome. We like to be in them. It's our nature as humans to want to be around other human beings in a romantic sense. But society doesn't really tell us how to be successful at it, and yet somehow we're expected to be successful, which is why there's a show in which people speed date more or less with the idea of getting engaged at the end. It's because I think that our society is trying to figure out how to become more efficient, more effective at relationships. And since that's what we do for our job, we're like, this show has got a really, really... Hey, someone from Golden, Colorado. We used to live in Denver. Someone in the comments popped up.
Amazing. Hi, Morgan. Hi, Amelia.
You see people doing all the stuff that you do in a relationship on the show, and it's easy to kind of take that and sort of look at your own relationship through the same lens. But unfortunately, the Bachelor franchise doesn't really display the most healthy relationship dynamics from time to time. Shocking, I know.
Yeah.
Especially after Hannah's unfortunate season.
Well, okay, it was way before that.
Well, I know, but I'm using that as a reference point because it just happened, and that was... There's some bad communication stuff that came out of that season.
I'm a licensed marriage family therapist. Kyle is not a licensed marriage family therapist. I think that's really important to clarify. However, I joke that Kyle could pass a licensing test in any state because of how long we've worked together. But we're not here to diagnose anybody on the show. We're not here to sit back and judge anybody on the show. We're here just to recap the show, but through the lens of healthy relationships and psychology. Right. So our opinions are just that. They're our opinions. And if you disagree with them, please tell us. What we want to do is create healthy discussion around the show and prevent anybody, including ourselves, from sitting at home and saying, well, he or she did that. Is that the right thing to do? Is that the healthy choice to make? We want to help facilitate that discussion. Mm-hmm. So if we say something that you're like, wow, I saw that really differently, tell us. We want to have that dialogue with you. We're not here to say we are correct in everything that we talk about, because that's not, that's just not what life is.
I'm not correct in the majority of things that I say.
Okay, well, that's not true. That's not true. That's really not true. Way to devalue anything that you've said in past episodes. I guess I gotta, cut that all out of my life.
Jesus. That's what we're all about. We're excited to get another episode started. Is there anything else we wanted to touch on before we start?
No, just that we're a day later than usual.
Yes. Usually this goes off during Bachelor in Paradise on Wednesdays, and then during normal seasons on Tuesdays, but we had some travel, hence the no sleep, And now we're doing it on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Hooray.
So we're very excited to be here with you. For those of you who are still catching it live, so happy you're here. And if you're listening to the podcast or catching the recording, thanks for hanging in with us on a week that we were not on our typical time. And hello to Rachel and Jessica and Terry. So glad that y'all are here. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started.
Bachelor in Paradise episode 9 and 10 recap.
The episode numbers confuse me.
Yeah, it's episode 9 and 10 because they double them up, but it's week 5. So I guess it just is confusing.
Yeah, it is confusing.
Anyone else confused by this? Constantly.
Okay. So the whole first segment of episode 1 is focused around Angela's arrival to Paradise and Clay and Nicole's subsequent reactions to this arrival. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot to say about this whole dynamic, but the editors did a good job of kind of splicing this up over the 2 episodes. So what I'm going to do is try my best to actually talk about it as we go in order.
Chronologically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Angela arrives and Blake is sitting with Clay and he's like, go hug her, go hug her, go hug her. Don't make this awkward. This is awkward. Go hug her. And everyone is uber aware that it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Really uncomfortable.
Yep.
And Angela has a date card, of course, and it says, Angela, it's time to finish your love story.
Yay. And while this is all going on, Nicole can't stop attacking Angela behind her back. And it's a very confusing set of... It's like a criticism and then a compliment that she keeps doing, where she's like, she says that she needs some Cuban meat on her bones, but then says she has a perfect everything. Is she perfect? Does she need something? If you're going to criticize somebody, at least stay consistent.
So here, well, okay.
It's ridiculous.
I'm going to disagree.
Wait, so if she can criticize, she can also compliment at the same time? It's confusing. I just want her to pick a side.
No, but I think that criticizing somebody for their looks is not ever appropriate.
Oh, no. No, I think it's petty, and I think it's childish. I'm talking about the confusing aspect where she says things that are complimentary about the appearance while also criticizing it. It's very odd.
Oh, yeah, she contradicts herself.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So confusing.
It's very, very obvious that Nicole feels insecure next to Angela. And what's really unfortunate is she has no reason to be. They're both beautiful, just in different ways. They seem nice, right? It just doesn't, she's just so insecure. And I get being insecure about the relationship because it hasn't been that long. And it's been in a bubble of paradise. But to make fun of somebody's physical characteristics, especially when they're beautiful characteristics, it doesn't look good.
No, it comes off as petty, and it comes off very obvious. It's very, it's transparent. That's the word I wanted to use. The way that Nicole acts around Angela is very transparent, that she's uncomfortable, she feels threatened in a relationship with Clay, which there's really no reason to. As the episodes progress, all of this seems to be happening inside of Clay and Nicole's heads. All the negativity around Angela that they feel seems to be self-inflicted, which is really interesting.
Okay, so let's continue.
I'm trying to go chronologically, too.
Angela says, I'm not going to let something that is over stop me. I didn't come to Paradise, then Clay says, I didn't come to Paradise to hang with my ex-girlfriend. I came to find someone, and I did. And Angela says, if it's okay for him to be here, why isn't it okay for me to be here?
Yeah.
Valid.
Also, yeah.
And then Nicole calls her an intruder. And,
really?
I mean... So with that logic, everybody who comes down the stairs after the original, cast at the beginning would be considered an intruder. And
it's just a weird it's a weird stance to take, is what I keep catching myself with Nicole. It's just kind of an odd, I don't know, it feels odd. It feels very different than we've seen her before in this season, especially when she was feeling very appreciated as a center of attention for some time, and now at the second that she feels threatened, it kind of overtakes everything else for her. So Tayshia goes to confront Clay over the difficulties going on, which I actually think that she's in the right to do this because Clay is sort of internalizing all of his confusion, frustration, I think being a little bit afraid of what's about to happen with Angela on the beach. He didn't introduce Nicole to Angela at the wedding that they're talking about. He hasn't really been upfront with Angela around what's going on. It just seems to be he's trying to be really hands-off because he's not really sure what to do, but being hands-off in the situation is what creates a larger situation. So I think that Tayshia does a really good job confronting Clay in a very non-aggressive manner and asking him, hey, are you really ready for a relationship? Are you really ready to do this? Because if you are, then you're not acting like it.
Yeah, and at the same time that's happening, we see Nicole pulling Angela aside. Mm-hmm. So we have these two conversations that are going on side by side, and it's just, it's uncomfortable. But I agree with you. I think Tayshia did a really good job. But then, Clay reacts to Mike taking Angela out on the date, and it's like the way that Clay reacts, you can just tell that he does not have closure. And when I say closure, I believe both as a person and a therapist that closure is an inside job. Closure is not something that we can look to somebody else for. We need to find it within ourselves.
Yeah.
And Clay has not found that. And that's not a judgment. That's not a criticism. He just hasn't. And it's so obvious because if you watch Angela watch Clay, it's not that she's like, cool, I love watching my ex be with this other woman. It's great.
No.
But notice how we're not getting clips of her saying, wow, this is so hard, and cutting to her face watching them, because it's not happening.
Yeah, I don't think that she's sitting on the beach staring at Clay from the distance, wondering what if. It's pretty clear to me that she has her own understanding around why that happened, around why they broke up, and we'll get to it later in the episode, but at the same time, she's not bringing it with her. She's moved on from that situation. Mm-hmm. I think it needs to be addressed, but also, she's moved on. I think Clay hasn't. Which is interesting because he says he broke up with her.
Which he did.
Which
so then we cut over to the Mike and Angela date, and this date, it kind of sucks because it felt as a viewer, and I would love to know what you guys think listening, or what you all think listening, or watching. This date felt like a mechanism to tell the backstory of Clay and Angela from Angela's perspective. The way that it was cut, and perhaps this is exactly the way that it went in real life, I don't know, but the way that I experienced it as a viewer was Angela saying, I'm an open book, you can ask me anything you want, and Mike asking her the questions that we all as viewers at home wanted to know the answers to.
Yeah, I agree with that. It seemed like Mike's presence on the date was more function than actual, date. It was like, hey, make sure we get the backstory. They didn't really seem to have much of a connection. I don't know. It just kind of was boring as a viewer because they're just reiterating Angela's version of what we already know, which turns out isn't so far off of what Clay said. It's missing some major details, or his version is missing some major details. Yeah. But it's more of a, okay, I wish they had actually done something fun on their date. Instead of talked about, what did they do?
I think my biggest takeaway from that whole segment was that Clay is the one that's saying that it's hard, even though everybody is saying that Angela, who's the one that's not over him.
Yeah.
And that's not what we saw. And Morgan in the chat says, I wanted to learn more about Angela. Yeah. I agree. I wanted to know more about Angela separate from Clay, not Angela and Clay. And I think that that's something that can happen when we're in relationships sometimes, is that we get melded into one unit. It's Rachel and Kyle, Angela and Clay, instead of forgetting, who is Angela without Clay. And I wish that we had had more time to learn that.
Yeah, I agree. I wish there was more to it. I don't remember a lot about Angela from previous seasons. that she was on, but I would like to have seen more about her on this, besides just Glenn.
Yeah, she's also beautiful.
She's stunningly gorgeous.
Wow.
So we cut to a quick commercial, and we come back to talk about Haley and John Paul Jones.
Well, the whole segment, this whole next segment is about John Paul Jones, Derek, Haley, and Tayshia. Yeah. And wow, what a shit show.
Yeah, so Haley likes John Paul Jones.
Still,
he talks about the waves for a while when they're talking, but he, in an ITM, is talking about how he's still locked on to Tayshia, and we see him flirting with Haley while then subsequently saying behind her back that he's into Tayshia, and it really looks like he's trying to, from my perspective, it looks like he's trying to hedge his bets and guarantee himself a rose, as the women have the power in this week. It kind of seems like he's trying to make sure he stays, because he's not sure what Tayshia's going to do. He doesn't feel secure about that, but he knows Haley likes him, so it kind of looks like he's trying to play both of them.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean...
So, I would love to know from you listening or watching right now.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on JPJ post-wedding aggressive confrontation with Derek?
Yeah.
Like, did your opinion on him change after that and the way that he handled this Haley situation? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah.
So JPJ then tells Mike that he's set on Tayshia. And Mike asks him, again, Mike playing like grandfather, wise man, narrator
and all
person.
Of his wise 30-something years.
Yeah, in all of his wise 30 years. Mike asks him if he's talked to Haley about this. And John Paul Jones is like, oh.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Was that a good John Paul Jones? Was that
Connor?
It was more
Connor than John Paul Jones.
How can you separate? I cannot hear the difference between Connor and John Paul Jones.
Connor drags out his syllables a lot. Well, Connor drags out his words, whereas John Paul Jones, he puts a lot of emphasis on the first syllable of the word, and then says the rest of it really quickly. He's
do it.
I can't right now. My impression ability is not on par, and I don't feel comfortable doing it. I haven't had enough coffee to do impressions today. So here's something really interesting, though. John Paul Jones starts saying what Tayshia wants.
Oh, and then talks shit on Derek to Mike.
Here's the best thing. He goes all in, talking with Mike about Derek. He says all this shit that he told him that you can go sleep with women from your DMs after being on Paradise and, blah, blah, blah podcast that he keeps promoting or whatever. All this stuff. And then in an ITM, he's like, I don't have any information to substantiate these claims. So what I did real quick was look up the definition of slander. That's what it is. It's character defamation and attacking without any substantial proof whatsoever. And so he's literally just making up lies about Derek with a negative intent in mind. And I have a hard time not thinking he's a piece of shit moving forward.
Yeah.
Because that's fucked up. That's not cool.
So I think that it's one of those moments, and the chat is blowing up about this. It's one of those things where everybody has bad moments, and we'll get into Chris Bukowski's conversation with John Paul Jones that I really loved in a little bit. But the problem with what happened, for me, the problem with what's been happening with JPJ is that he continually is staying in this, he's right, and everyone else that gets in his way is wrong. And the way that he talks to people is actually quite condescending. Very. Okay, so let's get into this. And then, so JPJ is telling Mike all of this stuff, and then he says that I don't have any facts to substantiate the point, but I know frauds when I see them, and that is a fact. Even though he has no facts.
That's also an opinion.
Yeah.
That's not a fact. Really, just
yes.
you're not getting your words right, buddy.
So then Derek and Haley are talking, and Derek says to Haley, because he's filling her in on everything.
There's an important distinction here. She asks, "How are you doing?" and he says, "I'm okay." And then she asks him why. Yeah. He did not start this conversation, which I just wanted a really important touch on.
No, that's really important.
Yeah.
So he responds and then says, yeah, and he's apparently super into Tayshia. And Haley's face is like, what? What are you talking about? She had no idea. And in that moment, if I had been Derek, I would have been like, see, I told you. I told you I didn't know. John Paul Jones expected Derek to know this when he was leading Haley to believe that he was into her.
Yeah.
And so Haley comes to then grab John Paul Jones after this conversation because she says she wants clarity, which is apparently the new buzzword of Bachelor shows. And Haley actually does a really, really, really good job of expressing her feelings in this moment. And he says that he owes her an apology, but he does not pay attention to the fact that she is really hurt. And instead, he starts to focus on the fact that this is none of Derek's business and this is not his jurisdiction, is the word that he uses.
He also said he has no dominion over this aspect of, like, the show, which is so funny because what John Paul Jones is upset about is something that he's been doing to Derek. What he thinks Derek has done is what he's actually been doing.
What?
Which is,
he didn't sleep with his followers.
No, it's been when he thinks that Derek is spreading rumors behind his back and talking to Haley behind his back and to, like, get her riled up.
Oh.
John Paul Jones has been trying to tear down Derek behind his back, and then when he thinks someone else is doing it, he completely loses his shit. Like,
yeah,
you seem to not react well to what you're doing when you think it's being done to you, which it isn't, by the way, at all.
So then we cut to commercial, and Haley is then confronting John Paul Jones in front of Demi and Christian and Blake.
Favorite part of the episode?
It really was. Watching Demi's face during this whole thing, I literally had to pause it because I was laughing so hard. And usually I don't love when people are in the background, like, making
like doing stuff.
Weird reactions. I'm like, let the people have their conversation. This was like, it was so funny. It was so funny. However, Haley is incredibly sad.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to watch.
She calls John Paul Jones out on trying to string her along to get a rose.
Yeah.
She directly identifies that, which is great. And, now he's being kind of a hypocrite around the way he's talking about Derek as well.
Yep. And JPJ says to her...
Oh, this was so bad. This is after he's talking over her a whole bunch?
Yep.
That he keeps doing?
So he's talking over Haley. This is after the first conversation, so she's already expressed that she's hurt.
This is so
And
bad.
he says to her, I can't even say it, "You're a big girl. You can explore your options. Don't put this on me now." Oh my.
Don't be mad at me for the things that I've done.
Our fellow podcasters at Here to Make Friends are going to have a field day with that comment.
What the fuck?
Could you imagine someone saying to you, I don't care what your gender is, okay? If you're a female, like...
It's like saying you're an adult.
Yeah. Like, you're an adult, go explore your options, don't put this on me, when it was all the person talking's doing. Like, Haley did nothing.
No.
And he said, like Shirley just said in the comments, JPG then said some very misleading things on their date.
Yeah.
If that's truly how he was feeling.
Oh yeah, he was 100% trying to secure an extra rose just to make sure he stayed. Because the whole thing, I think when Derek picked Tayshia before him, he's like, oh, the format of how people go for the roses matters. I have to make sure that I'm extra protected. Which, just like wearing 2 condoms, not a great idea. It's not effective. It's actually less effective, as it turns out. Actually, I'm pretty proud of that. Perfect metaphor.
And truly, whether that was a female saying it to a female or a male saying it to a male, it is just rude and condescending.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Haley is then even more upset and crying, and I get that so much. she starts to kind of blame all men, which I didn't love.
Yeah, she generalizes about men being shitty. I did like that Blake is comforting her, and he just goes kind of quietly, "Fuck men." That was amazing.
Even though, again, like, I don't love the generalization.
No.
But
funny in moment.
I understand that, like, she was really hurt at the time.
Yeah.
So Wells, Haley goes away, and Wells looks at John Paul Jones, and he's like, "So, do you think that went well, or do you, like, think it went not well?" And
such a good question.
Derek or JPJ is just kind of like,
yeah, he doesn't handle it very well. He just seems frustrated. And so this is when Derek comes up to John Paul Jones and asks him to have a conversation.
He says that he wants to get to an amicable agreement and understanding of each other.
And the way he approaches this is so good. It's non-confrontational. He's like, hey man, hey, do you want to, I'd love to talk to you. Like, do you want to, hey, he's not using his hands very much. He's not speaking in a tone that John Paul Jones is going to react to, because he showed that he will react negatively to any form of confrontation.
Also, he's not saying, hey, I want to talk to you about what you said.
No.
Or, hey, I want to talk about Tayshia.
Hey, I want to talk to you.
He's saying, hey, I want to talk to you to get to an understanding.
Yeah.
And John Paul Jones turns him down. Derek asks him again. And finally, they walk away together.
Yeah.
And we cut to an ITM of Sydney saying that JPJ and Derek are, quote, in a feud. And I thought that this was important to point out because they are not in a feud.
No.
JPJ is attacking Derek.
Yes.
Derek did not consent or engage in this feud.
No.
Now, if Derek had taken what JPJ said to him and then started going around and shit-talking JPJ, then they're in a feud.
Or had, like, raised his voice at the wedding, which he didn't.
Right.
Like, it takes two to tango. Just because one person is yelling at the other does not mean it's a mutual engagement.
Right.
Which is what's happening here. So, again, I wonder how Sydney feels about being used as a mechanism on the show to share an inauthentic version of what's happening, or pure negativity. It's really odd.
Yeah, I don't, because I've seen Sydney interviewed before.
Yeah.
And she doesn't seem like a person who is negative all the time, but what we're getting shown as viewers is her saying very, like, generalized statements that are negative and incorrect.
And
like
often
this.
misleading.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's really important to distinguish if you told me that you're in a feud with somebody, knowing what the word means, I'm going to jump to, there is a back and forth happening.
Yeah.
You're in a feud, right? Yeah. Family feud. You go back and forth on your family teams. Derek is not in it. Like, he's in it by default because he pulled him in and he's trying to disengage.
Right.
But he's not in a feud with John Paul Jones. That drove me nuts. I was like, it's fake news. It's fake news. They're not in a feud.
Well, so we get a quick commercial. We see really quickly Haley explaining to Tayshia what happened and kind of her version of things. And then we get cut right to Derek and John Paul Jones. And this right here, of all things, is so evident as to where Derek's coming from this, which invalidates Sydney's dumb feud situation. He asked John Paul Jones... By the way, we don't think
Sydney is dumb.
No, I think
that statement was dumb.
Yes.
I just wanted
Statement
to clarify.
dumb, I don't know Sydney.
We're not in a feud with Sydney.
No.
Because we don't know her.
That's funny. So... This is the statement that is so indicative of who Derek is as a person and his position in this fake feud. He asks John Paul Jones how they went from being friends to him feeling attacked. So he's saying, how did we go from friends to this? Because he wants to know what happened, because he doesn't know, because John Paul Jones has just slandered him without giving any real evidence, because, oh wait, there isn't any.
Which he literally said, that he has no facts to substantiate the claims that he's making.
Which he said
were facts.
On camera. That he said both, but one doesn't validate the other. So,
right.
John Paul Jones says that he thinks Tayshia has made her decision. Derek says she hasn't made a decision. You can't say that. And I think, so we see through the process of this conversation, Derek getting pretty frustrated. And I think that's the thing that really set him off, because John Paul Jones is talking for Tayshia, which is unfortunately something that happens fairly commonly on the show.
It happens all the time in life.
Well, absolutely.
Men assume, and this is going to be a generalization, but because of the way that our society has been set up for so long, many men are still under the assumption, and it might not even be conscious. It just could be the environment they grew up in. It could be the culture, and they haven't realized that that's what they're doing. But many men are brought up to speak for women. Because back in the day, women did not have a voice. We literally couldn't vote. So men literally spoke for us as women. That has gotten much better as time has gone on, but we're still feeling the effects of that. And somebody like Derek, who has been in relationships with somebody like Taylor Nolan, who is an incredibly strong, wonderful, powerful woman. She's also a mental health professional. I think that for him, it's so important to not do that, that to hear somebody do that about someone he cared about, especially, was very triggering for him.
Yeah.
And I actually liked, and I would love to hear I'd love to hear your opinion on this, everybody listening and watching, is I liked seeing Derek actually get lit up. I thought that he did such a good job of keeping his cool. And I was ready to see him defend himself because JPJ was coming at him.
Yeah.
And he needed to defend himself verbally.
Yeah. We get a really frustrating cut of all of the women on the beach saying how these two need to control themselves. This is attractive. This is the worst thing you can possibly do. This is one guy trying to defend his character against someone openly slandering him. And if you for a second think that's mutual, then they need to really pay attention to the rewatch of this show. Because what they're talking about on the beach makes Derek look like an equal player in this conversation, and he's not. Especially because he's trying to make amends and forge an understanding, whereas John Paul Jones becomes antagonistic and childish. And to the point where Derek knows he won't talk to him anymore, so Derek starts calling him out on everything he's doing. And he's like, oh, look. Little quip as you walk away, and there's another one, and you won't even talk to me. And John Paul Jones is like, whatever, man, whatever, you don't even know, I'm done, blah. And just keeps walking away while trying to antagonize him. That's not someone who's confident acting. That's someone who's running away from the reality of the situation he created and is then being called out on.
It's like in the previous week when he was like, nope, 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 nope. Like, I'm pretty sure 10? I did that when I was like 9 to my mom. Like, she was like, go clean your room, go do your homework. And I was like, nope, nope, nope,
I want to give you more credit. You were probably 5. Like, when do you learn the word no pretty early. I don't understand kids' ages.
Maybe
I'm trying
not
to figure
nope.
It out. Well, yeah, nope. That's like this. Maybe it's 4 years old. You get nope.
So this is where Kyle and I really differ. Fun side note is that I'm the oldest in my family, like of all the cousins, the whole family, and I love children. I have since I was a little kid. And I studied child psychology in school, so like I really understand and love kids. Kyle's an only child and did not grow up around any children.
Never had a chance.
And so he's like, why can't that 3-year-old spell?
I was trying to show a friend.
So
3-year-old had to
just a
spell
little
a word,
context.
and she couldn't fill in the letters, and I was like, how do you not get 2 of 5 letters? I already wrote 3 and 4.
I was like, Kyle, she's 3.
What? No, I don't know.
He's learning. We can learn.
So
then we cut to a commercial.
Yeah, the fight ends somehow.
I was very frustrated about this. I did not like that Derek was put into the same grouping as him. I did not like that the rest of the people on the beach were putting Derek in the same grouping as him.
Yeah.
And the fact that, obviously we've all watched the episode now, so the fact that this ends up eventually leading to Derek leaving after his conversation with Tayshia, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I'd want to leave too.
Oh, yeah. If I was in his position, I would 100% leave.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not worth it dealing with this, like, man-child freaking out whenever you do something that he perceives is encroaching, like, on his work. I don't know. It's some dumb shit.
Yeah. So then we cut to a commercial,
We
and
get two new guys.
we get two new guys. And apparently, Mike and Sydney's relationship ended, which we didn't see
Did it start?
any of it starting, it happening, or it ending.
Well, so they did some backflips on the beach once. I saw that.
That was that.
And maybe it's like Footloose, in which that is like the relationship being forged, and maybe the dancing is like, that's it.
But they weren't dancing.
Well, I guess they're back. She's a dancer, and she was like teaching him something, so maybe that's it. I guess Blake would be the Footloose person of this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Matt Donald comes back. He's in night 1 from Hannah Brown's season.
Who I adored night 1. I'm so happy he's back.
He's kind of getting the grocery store Joe treatment in the way that everyone seems to like him, even though he went home night 1, which I always find an interesting dynamic when that happens. Like, is production like kind of keeping him in the back pocket because of like the online fan reaction? I'm always fascinated when someone from night 1 has this level of response, because almost everybody on the beach seemed to know who he was. They're like, oh, it's Matt Donald. Like, everyone kind of knew who he was when he showed up.
He made a big first impression on night 1, because I remembered who he was.
Yeah, me too.
I don't remember all the time who the night 1 people are. And Luke S. is there.
I wrote down that production really did Luke S. dirty on his season with Hannah, and then they go ahead and do it to him again and compare him heavily to Nick Viall, with having them side by side saying the same thing, and then also a nonstop comparison between the two of them. I just feel bad for him.
The editing of these 2 episodes felt like they took so much more content that was not filmed on the beach and put it into the show.
Do you think they were missing content, or the editors are bored?
I don't know. But also, Matt's voice, Morgan was saying in the chat, Matt's cute little cracking voice. It was really adorable.
So Luke and Matt get a double date rose.
And they ask Sydney and Christina.
Luke picking Christina, Matt picking Sydney. And
Tayshia's bummed.
Which, all right, okay.
Yeah. And Hannah, then we cut to a commercial. We come back, and it is Dylan's birthday, and he and Hannah are in the boom boom room.
Apparently they've been in there for some time.
Yes.
Like a day or something.
Yeah, they were like,
other cast people
that's what they made it sound like.
Like 10 minutes.
Okay, friends listening. Scale of 1 to 10. 10 being you love it, 1 being you really hate it. How much do you like Hannah and Dylan together? I'm curious.
Do you want... Are we going to answer?
Sure. Go ahead.
Well, you go first.
No, you go first.
I think an 8. Like an 8.
Yeah, I'd go an 8. Well...
I think that...
Yeah.
I think we haven't really gotten to see a lot of Hannah's personality over her time on the Bachelor franchise. And I think that she is more human than they portray her. I think they portray her as like this, like she's so attractive and so calm, everything's like easy. But I think she's actually a really deep person.
And goofy.
Goofy. And I think that Dylan's actually a really great partner for her, because he is supportive and understanding and likes to hear her explain how she's feeling, and I don't think she's gotten a lot of that from what I've seen on the show. And he doesn't seem to expect anything from... I don't know, they seem like they work out. I wish them the best.
Yeah, I do too. I'm excited to see.
All right, looks like I was on it. So we got 8 and a 5, 8 and a half, 8 and a 5, 8 and a half, a 6, an 8, and a 9. All right.
Yeah, 7.
Pretty good.
Totally.
All right, so we're getting an overall positive vibe on the Dylan-Hannah situation, which is nice. We get to see Demi and Christian once in this episode because they're cute together, and that's it. They just come and go.
I know. I want more.
I know. So we get to see the double date happen. We get to see Matt talking about how he's got a sensitive stomach and doesn't do all spicy things, so of course they drink spicy as fuck margaritas. It's
Makes
dumb
sense.
and funny is what I wrote.
Thanks, production. So cut back to the beach. Blake is alone.
I have 3 paragraphs of notes. Each one starts with the sentence, Blake is alone and sad.
Wait. Kyle's notes say, Blake is alone and sad.
It's sad.
Blake is sad about life.
Yeah, and then Blake, okay.
Yeah.
And then he's also sad now about the internet, because this I actually think is kind of fucked up. women who went to the wedding, Chris and Crystal's wedding, they told him, like Tia and a bunch of the people of the franchise told Blake that the internet is like shitting on him right now and that he's facing trouble when he gets off the beach. So he doesn't have access to the internet, obviously, while they're filming. Saying that to him, I think it's kind of fucked up. I think it's like, let him just be.
I didn't
What's
catch
the point
that.
of dragging him down already? The dude has had a rough go of things, largely of his own doing, but that doesn't negate the fact that it's been rough. We all do things that we're not happy with later in life, but having it constantly be put on you, it definitely will make your mental health suffer over a while. And then having that shared with him at the wedding, that's messed up. Like,
Yeah.
really.
I mean, it's also the unknown of, like...
Right. You think he's not thinking about that
Right.
constantly now?
And then now he knows that when he gets his phone back, it's just going to blow up.
So
Like,
many red bubbles.
Oh, it makes my stomach hurt thinking about it.
Right. I don't appreciate that aspect of it. I wish that whoever told them about that could have kept their mouth shut.
Yeah. So then we cut back to the double date. Luke S. is saying that he's not sure if Christina is over Blake, which is very interesting now looking back after we've watched the second episode.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the time that this aired and we were watching it, we
Yeah.
had not seen the second episode yet.
Yep.
But that's very interesting that they put that in. Matt Donald reminds us that he has 2 deaf parents, and
Yeah.
we see just how adorably shy he is.
Mhm.
He's so nervous to kiss Sydney. He's like sweating, his voice is cracking.
He says he doesn't want to move too fast and he wants things to be more organic, and she sort of understands. And so they move on from the date. We get to see Derek talking to Blake and Chris about John Paul Jones and kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And they're understanding and supportive, and they seem to get his perspective now that they're talking and not judging from across the beach where you don't actually know what's happening.
Yeah.
Shocking how information helps.
And then John Paul Jones comes to grab Tayshia to talk. And while the outcome is apparently fine,
Positive.
I personally did not love this conversation. He said a lot of words.
He didn't say much, though.
Right.
It's funny that you wrote it out that way, too, because I wrote, he says some miscellaneous stuff about where he stands, and then he admires her, and then he says a few words with a bunch of long pauses, and then says his feelings are so strong, and then apparently starts crying. I wrote it looked fake, however, I'm seeing it through a TV.
Right.
Maybe he was really crying. I didn't see any tears. It did sound like laughing.
So then after saying, you know, he says all these miscellaneous words. Then he says, I have no idea what she's thinking, though.
Maybe you
And
should
my notes were,
ask.
maybe you could have asked her.
Like at any point, like, hey, we're 2 consenting adults, and I have my thoughts about what I would like. Maybe, for a second, I can ask the other 50% of this decision
What?
they would like, because then we both get what we like instead of me only getting what I like. But I guess that takes effort.
I
thought.
did not like it.
Didn't like it.
Tamara asks in the chat, do you think it's possible that Sydney was his very first kiss? No,
No.
because she asks him, have you ever kissed on the first date before? And he says, yes, I have.
Also, it'd be a way bigger deal for the show.
Yeah,
You saw what happened to Heather.
they would make it his whole narrative.
Right. So we see Tayshia and Sydney talking about guys, and Tayshia acknowledges that JPJ gets really hot-headed and wouldn't let Derek talk. But Sydney tells her, you should just disregard that and put that away separately, even though it's a massive red flag that will haunt the rest of your relationship if it's not addressed. Don't pay attention to that and think about what you want now.
She literally tells her to avoid any red flags.
Then I wrote, why would anyone listen to Sydney about relationships?
Well, so, okay, not just Sydney, but this is something that I talk about with my clients, my friends.
Oh, yeah.
If you're accepting advice from somebody, because we all get advice, whether we solicit it or it comes to us unsolicited, we all get advice, and we all need advice at certain points in our life.
Yep.
Many points, even.
Yep.
a great filter to put advice through is that person that I'm taking advice from leading a life in the area that they're giving me advice in that I want to live? So I am by no means saying that if you're not in a healthy, happy relationship that you can't give relationship advice. You may be really, really, really knowledgeable about healthy relationships and just not have found your person.
Yeah.
There are obviously exceptions, but it's a great filter to ask yourself. So in this example, Sydney's telling Tayshia, hey, Tayshia, avoid the red flags and just follow your heart right now. So I would ask myself, does Sydney have a life and relationship that I want? And if the answer is no, it's not that I'm not going to take that advice, but it's that I'm going to be aware that that's who it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if it comes from somebody who's been happily in a relationship for like 12 years, and they say that, and I really admire their relationship, and I think it's healthy and wonderful, perhaps I'm going to take that advice in differently. Does that make sense?
Totally. And it's a great, it's a great filter for anything.
Yeah, it's like you don't want somebody to give you money advice if they, like, let's say they have a scarcity mindset and you're trying to live abundantly.
Yeah.
Perhaps you want to take advice from people who also think and live abundantly.
Right.
Right? It's not that you're shutting out the other people. It's just being aware of where the advice is coming from.
Right. I'm not going to take saving advice from a gambling addict. You know what I mean?
I mean, you could if they're really good at saving.
I guess that would feed the addiction in this Okay, but you get what I mean. I'm not going to take advice from someone who's shitty at doing the thing they're giving
broken.
Advice.
So, anyway, back to the show.
Oh my god.
So, Derek pulls Tayshia to talk, and Tayshia tells Derek that she doesn't know if she can get there with him. And I love what Derek asks back. I became like more and more obsessed with Derek throughout this episode, which I didn't think could happen more after the way that he's handled himself. He asks her if she knows that she can't get there or if she really doesn't know if she can. Right? Because what she said is, I don't know if I can get there.
Yep.
And so he's like, okay, so are you just trying to be nice and telling me that you don't know, or do you know that you cannot get there? And she can't really answer him.
So this is I've been fairly positive around Tayshia so far. This is my big issue. First of all, listening to Sydney's terrible advice. Secondly, she seems to want, it almost reminds me of Hannah earlier in the season. She seems to want to have what she'd like happen without having to deal with any of the ramifications of what she wants. It's like the way she treats this relationship stuff is that if I wanted to be in really, really good shape, I would realize that I would have to eat healthier, right? She wants to be in really great shape and still eat cheeseburgers every day. That's the way she's acting in the situation because he's trying to ask her what she wants and she's evading because she doesn't want to be honest about it. And then she wanders from the conversation and he asks, but are you sure it's not me? And then she cries, having to be honest for the first time in this conversation. And then he's hurt and he's open about it, which is the worst thing for someone like Tayshia because she doesn't want to hear the damage that she's done, regardless of whether or not it's the right choice for either of them.
None of us do.
Right. None of us do, but the way she responds to this is I didn't see her taking a lot of responsibility for her actions. She seemed to be hurt and sad by it.
What
but
actions?
Well, by telling Derek that she doesn't want to move on,
That she doesn't want to move on?
Yeah, that she doesn't want to move on with Derek.
Oh, I felt move forward with Derek.
Yeah. She don't want to move forward with Derek. She almost seems like she's the one being broken up with. The way that she acts. Does that make sense? Maybe that's just me.
Yes, and I think that that's a completely typical human reaction to having to do something that... Because she clearly cares about Derek. And doesn't want to be the second person to just completely break his heart. And I think that she's sad that she doesn't feel the way that she wants about him.
I guess. I just feel like, so as we talked about earlier when he goes home, the way that she responds to that, I don't know. It's like she acts surprised when he leaves, and I kind of wonder what else she thought would happen. It's like, I guess maybe she didn't seem like she had thought through the ramifications of like, hey, I don't want to be with you, but also go be happy. And he's like, well, I'm not gonna be now. Like, I was after you, and now I have nothing, so I'm gonna leave. And then I don't know. She seemed like she was surprised by that later on. That's all.
And I think that that's again like a normal.
You think?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I just. I've had so many clients that have gone through this, and I've also been that person in a breakup where it's like, hey, I wanted to explore this with you, and now we explored it, and it's not for me. But when you care so deeply, it's like you know that you're hurting somebody that you care about. And then to watch him leave the whole show because of that, it's like, fuck, what did I do? It's like, I didn't mean to... I get it. I just get it.
I get it. I also think that she definitely could be more aware of that as a possibility. I don't know. I just remember...
What would that look like?
Her not being so reactive to Derek leaving. Like, I feel like when they had the conversation and he's like, well, I'm not happy, she seemed sad about that, but I don't know. I took it in a weird way. It didn't seem like she really thought through what the result of her choosing John Paul Jones would be, and then when it happened, she seemed surprised by it. Maybe that's what it is. She seemed surprised that Derek was sad and that he's wanting to go home, when objectively that's really the only course of action at this point. Like,
I mean, he could have waited for somebody else, theoretically.
I just feel like she was surprised at his response when I was not surprised. Maybe that's me.
Maybe.
Faith
in the chat. See, by the way, friends, we don't talk about the show until we're live here so that we have these organic conversations and we can disagree in front of you and kind of question each other. So Faith says, do you think that Derek is a strong potential next Bachelor because of the story that they've set up? I wish.
I mean...
I don't. And I'll tell you why. I don't think that ABC would have allowed John Paul Jones to say those things. They would not have aired that.
To go for like a tirade like that?
If he was going to be the next Bachelor. Because people will believe there. I guarantee you that there are people out there, and maybe you're one of them. Tell me if you are. It's okay. There are people out there that I guarantee believe John Paul Jones. Even though JPJ has said, I have no facts to substantiate this.
Other than his factual opinion. Some bullshit.
I don't think that they would have let that air if they were planning on him being the next Bachelor.
No, I also think that they probably would have had a more dramatic send-off or something rather than what happened.
Megan says, do you think it would have helped Derek to hear that it was the JPJ arguments that shifted Tayshia's opinion, even if it didn't change the outcome?
I think he would have been happier to leave. Like, I think that his perception of Tayshia might have changed a little bit. Like, oh, if you're actually going to listen to this idiot, then that's cool. Like, that would have helped me distance myself had I been Derek in this situation.
But from what she said, it wasn't that. I don't know if that's true. Like, we can't know. I would love to be able to talk to her about it and find out. But from what she said, that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Who knows if that's the case? We can only go off of what she said.
Yeah, so we get a quick commercial break, and then I noticed that John Paul Jones really has only been talking to Dylan and Hannah about this stuff. And in this situation, I wrote down, it seems to be that Dylan and Hannah are his only real allies because they're so distant from everybody else. Because he's talking about all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh yeah, man, we see where you're coming from," and where everyone else is like, hey, "Take a beat for a second."
Yeah, but still, nobody that we've seen has acknowledged to John Paul Jones how fucked up it was that he confronted Derek at someone else's wedding.
Right.
Like,
that's
whatever happens on the beach, and like it's still messed up what he did. He yelled at another person at someone else's wedding. I would have been
he doesn't know these people either.
Livid if someone did that at our wedding.
Yeah.
And nobody seems to be acknowledging this. So I feel like JPJ's just kind of like, oh, it's just John Paul Jones. I'm like, no.
You're disrespectful.
This is not okay behavior.
Yeah. So we get Derek bringing everybody together, and he sends himself home. Says his goodbyes. And this is part of what I wrote around Tayshia not really being ready for the consequences of her actions. She freaks out. She says she feels really bad. She didn't expect Derek to go home. I wrote down, what the fuck did you think would happen? And she's away from the group, her head's in her hands. Either stand by her decision and cry and hug him, or go back. That's what I'm saying. There's a disconnect between her actions and then her responses.
I get...
There's just a weird inconsistency there. Like, if you're going to do something, stand by it.
But she did stand by it.
I don't know.
She didn't say, no, stay.
I don't know. I feel like it's like putting an egg on the edge of the counter and being surprised when it falls off. Like, oh, no. Like,
but was she...
She said she was surprised.
Right, but what, like... She can believe that he's not her person.
Yeah.
Tell him, and still be surprised when he makes himself go home immediately after that.
I guess. I mean, I don't know her. Maybe the editing was put together out of, like, to display there was no time in between. I was just very surprised by her reaction after what was very clearly, like, him planning on going home after their conversation.
Did you think that he was going to leave after the Demi conversation?
I thought that there was a chance to, if he wasn't really sure about himself. I think that the spoiler, like the clips of the show showed that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So I wasn't as expecting it then.
So why is it more likely that he would go home after this conversation than with the Demi?
I feel like because of their conversation on the, like, daybed towards the end, like, where she tells him that she's not into it, and he, like, has to navigate the conversation for her almost, getting to the point where she's like, yeah, it's not going to be you. And he's sad, and he shares that there's really, like, no one else that he's interested in. So with that knowledge, again, this is just me, if I was Tayshia, yeah, that person's probably going to go home, because if there's no more options, a certain amount of time into the show, this person's sad for the second breakup they've had, like, the writing's on the wall at this point. Maybe that's me.
I love you. I will lovingly disagree with you.
Right.
And Natalie and Morgan in the chat were saying the same thing. Natalie says, I don't feel like she wasn't standing by it. I feel that she was just upset knowing she hurt someone and caused them to leave. Morgan says, I thought she was surprised because she thought he would stay until Roses. I agree.
Yeah.
You also have the right to your own opinion, my love.
I thought she handled it poorly.
Hey, wait. Handled it poorly? You just said that she didn't stand by her decision.
Oh, I just think that she handled all of it poorly. I think that she handled the conversation with Derek poorly, which is why he had to go so much into it. And, like...
So what could she have done to do it better?
I think that she could have been more honest at the beginning of the conversation and not had him pull out what she was trying to say from her. I think that she could have not listened to Sydney about what to do because of the reasons that you said. And then, I don't know, walking away from the group after he announces he's leaving and he's saying his goodbyes to, like, cry on the beach for a minute before saying... It just seems odd. I don't know.
Why can't she be sad?
Well, she can be sad, just... I don't know. It felt different to me. I don't know.
This is very interesting. Do you see how we all experience things differently? I was like, yes, this makes perfect sense to me.
So
Aaron says, I think since Derek didn't cry like John Paul Jones did, she didn't think her decision would affect him as much as it did. Derek seems like someone that suffers in silence rather than putting his emotions on others.
That's a good point, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot to that, too. I think that, larger displays of emotions definitely help people connect better on this show. I also think that different people, like you said, show up differently around their emotions, and maybe they're just not supposed to be together. Who's to say?
Right. And that's all I'm saying is that I think that she can decide that and feel sad that he is then leaving. Because she cares about him as a human.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Kyle's coming around, friends.
We'll see. I will have my own opinion.
So Derek makes this really sad statement. He says, it just seems like when I finally click with somebody, they run away.
Yeah. So if anyone has any questions or anyone ever believes the John Paul Jones stuff. If you want to really look at who Derek is as a person, there's one moment from this episode that just describes everything about his character and his integrity, and it's the way Christian and him interact as he leaves. If he is not a good person or he doesn't handle things well, that would have gone differently, I think. The fact that he and Christian had that hug and the way they spoke to each other on the way out was incredibly indicative of who he is and the way he shows up in relationships and exiting relationships. And so that was a really sweet moment.
Yeah, it was. And Nisha, I agree with you. I think that Tayshia is more sensitive than she kind of gives herself credit for or shows us. And I think that vulnerability came out in that moment of, oh shit, he's going home.
Right.
That's how I interpreted it anyway.
That's fair. She also did second guess herself a little bit afterwards. She talked about how she's putting John Paul Jones out of her head. She doesn't want to be around anyone. And yet she's like, well, maybe did I do the right or wrong thing?
That's what I mean. Yeah. It's like she scared. Did second guess herself. Like she's scared that she chose poorly or didn't make the right choice.
You know what I think it is? It's because from my perspective, this is why the show is so fascinating to talk about, because from my perspective, John Paul Jones has demonstrated a few red flags around relationships. Like serious red flags, too. Whereas Derek hasn't. And so I have a hard time looking at this situation objectively and being like, well, do whatever you like. I'm like, yes, obviously do whatever you like, but like, are you missing some really important key factors? However, I mean, we saw how far red flags got unacknowledged with Hannah, so...
Right. I also think that Tayshia made it very clear that this was not JPJ versus Derek for her. She really wanted it to work with Derek. It at least, I mean, she pursued him. And I think that it just wasn't there for her. And that sucks. Like, I don't know about any of you, but I know I've been there where I've really wanted something to work. Yeah. And it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the end of episode 1. Let's just take a stretch break. Click that thumbs up button on the YouTube video if you're here on YouTube watching us live or the recording. If you're listening to this as a podcast, if you can press pause and go rate and review and subscribe, that would be amazing. It really helps other people find the show. Every time you share it on Instagram, share it from YouTube, whether it's the podcast or the video, it helps so much. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Don't have mints anymore. It's a mints up here.
The thing was empty.
Oh.
Yeah, I went to get one and it was empty.
Yeah. All right. So, night 2. We start with Blake not doing well.
Poor Blake, man.
I mean, never has someone suffered in the consequences of their own actions so openly.
It's really...
I really appreciate it. He's just not happy, and he knows why, and he's just living in it. Really questioning why he's there. Which is fair. I would be doing the same thing.
Just now?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that I would do different. Blake.
But like just at this point you'd be like, why am I still here?
No, I think that having Derek go home rattled Blake a little bit more, and I think that was the real like switch in his head, like, oh, why am I here? Because I can I feel like the fact that you can just go hasn't really occurred to Blake yet. Like, I think that he's still stuck in the format. He's like, how am I getting a rose? Who am I going to connect with? How am I going to find my love story? All these things.
He's like, oh, I can leave.
And then Derek just goes and he's like, oh, if I really wanted to see what the internet was saying about me, I can just go.
I can walk off this beach.
Wait, shit, that's why he stays.
Do you think that? To not see what's going on? No. Maybe subconsciously.
Maybe he's like, maybe I can forge a better story for myself by the end of this.
I can redeem myself.
Redemption arc.
So what's really interesting is once Derek leaves, the cast slowly but surely starts talking to JPJ about how he handled things.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah, so that whole first episode, we don't get anything. Like I mentioned, it's not... it doesn't make any sense. Like, nobody's saying anything about what JPJ did. And Then Derek leaves, and finally people are saying something. Now, if this could have been masterful editing, and Derek could have still been there, and they just made sure that no shot had him in it, the way that it was portrayed to us as viewers was that it happened after he left, and it looked like it as well.
Yeah.
So this actually leads into one of my favorite moments of the episode, which is Chris Bukowski and John Paul Jones talking in the pool.
Oh, yeah. So, we see him talk a little bit, and Chris asks him kind of, hey, what's going on with you? Like, how you doing after last night, everything? So I think it is the morning after. And immediately, John Paul Jones starts out with the same bullshit. I have no regrets about what I said, and I stand by it, and Derek wasn't good, and Tayshia and I this, and blah, 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 that. And then Chris goes, okay, I hear you. And he says, you know what? You're everyone's favorite here, and one of the things we like about you is you stand, like you have your values, and you live your life according to your values, and that's really cool. He says, don't forget that, though. And he says, I'm not saying what you did. He's talking about the conversation that John Paul Jones had with Derek, or several of them that he had at Derek, more accurately. He says, I'm not saying what you did was wrong. I'm saying that you might look back and say, I wish I had handled that differently. And now, this is apparently coming from Chris's backstory that I don't know very well, but you do.
Yes, I do.
And so, that seems to get through to John Paul Jones a little bit, and he realizes, you almost see, like, the thought come into his head where he's like, I could have handled that differently. Maybe it would be better. And he says, I don't want to alienate anybody after saying some of the most reprehensible things you can say about another person. It's a little... Honestly, I don't really believe him. I think that he's just saying what sounds good in the moment. In this case, I think John Paul Jones doesn't really feel remorse around this.
Well, yeah, I mean, he says in the moment after this that he's only upset because of how it affected Tayshia.
Right, so at the end of their conversation, Chris reminds him that he's rooting for him to find happiness, and we see Chris in an ITM reflect about how he's had his struggles on the show with other people, and how important it is to remember that when you deal with another person, you're also dealing with their emotions and their life and their relationships. So it's not just about you, and it is very indicative of the amount of work Chris has done for himself.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. Like, any of you who watched Chris on past seasons, whether it was on Bachelor Pad or his Bachelorette season, on Emily's season, or on Paradise, he has done some pretty shady shit. And the fact that we don't need to get into it right now, we're barely going to stay under time. The fact that he was able to articulate to John Paul Jones, he gave us a masterclass in healthy communication. The reason why he was able to get through to JPJ even a little bit and like diffuse him was because he did not start with a criticism. At no point did he say, you were wrong, you did this, you did that, because that's exactly how John Paul Jones attacked Derek. Eric.
Like
instead, he acknowledges the good things about him. And then says, listen, it's not my place to tell you if you're right or wrong. I do think that you're going to watch this back and want to change some things.
Yeah.
And that gets through to him.
It does.
However, he still seemingly does not have a lot of remorse. In that moment when they're in the pool, it looks like it's gotten through. The ITM we see after, which who knows, could have been filmed the night before, we don't know. He says that he's only upset because how it affected Tayshia. And that's when we cut to Mike and Tayshia talking. And Mike is basically saying to Tayshia, if you see red flags, if you have reservations, you need to address them now.
Yeah.
Do not wait until later to bring these things up. Do it now.
Mike, again, playing the amazing, supportive, safety net for everybody. For their emotions, for everything else. John Paul Jones briefly talks with Demi and realizes that he might have been an asshole and how that could have affected Tayshia. And Demi suggests that he move forward in a way that acknowledges what Tayshia wants instead of only what he wants. And he seems to be like, oh, you mean the other person has to want it also? So weird. I didn't know that. Dumb.
It's really frustrating to watch.
We get to see Chris and Katie. After a commercial,
go
to the boom room, which is where there's no cameras and they can do whatever they want.
He asks her to spend the night, and she says yes. Then we finally got to see some of Christian and Demi. They talk about, Christian tells her how much courage it took to come out so publicly and vulnerably.
Yeah.
Demi says that, she could only do it with her. They kiss, there are candles. I was like, finally, we get to see them.
I just wrote down love and support and connection don't look any different regardless of gender or sexual orientation.
100%.
It's a sweet moment between two people.
100%.
Loved it.
And then we cut to JPJ and Tayshia talking. And Tayshia tells JPJ that she doesn't like that he pressured her because she can make her own decisions, which is exactly what Derek was telling John Paul Jones. Tayshia says in a voiceover that she has a soft spot for JPJ, and then follows that up with, he's so sure about me. And this statement...
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
This statement took me off guard. Because Tayshia comes across to me as a very confident, loving person and comfortable in her own skin. This statement made it sound like that her soft spot for him and the reason why she's like into him potentially is because of how sure he says he is about her. And I think that we can all agree that that's not a great reason to continue to be with somebody,
right? Is
how much they love us. Because if we don't love them back the same, it's not good.
Yeah.
And that's tough. That was hard to hear. And I did not think about that at all when I saw them interacting.
No.
But that statement...
Yeah, it seemed odd coming from her. And I don't... The situation with the two of them makes me feel... I feel odd around it because it kind of... At this point, it sort of appears like he can do no wrong that will upset Tayshia. I mean... So, she was vying for two people, and one person said some of the most inflammatory, antagonistic, and damaging things that you can say about someone else, which are completely unfounded, as proven by his own words.
Statement of, I have no facts.
And yet, still, someone like that perseveres and comes out, air quotes, the victor, which even the people on the beach talk about, like, John Paul Jones thinks he, like, won. And... I'm concerned for how that will play out with Tayshia because where's the line now?
Yeah.
With how he treats other people and her in the future.
Yeah.
Because that's the issue about a red flag, especially when it comes to respecting communication. He could not communicate in a respectful manner. That's not something that's going to go away. Wait till he's upset about something else. Or feels
upset
boxed
at
in.
her.
Right.
Or upset at the grocery store clerk when they're buying grocery, like...
Is he going to start laughing like that weird, false Joker laugh?
Okay.
Just trying to get a rise out of somebody? You know who does that? People who are trying to instigate a fight, because that's so disrespectful.
So, side note, I saw this meme of JPJ's face being like the love child of Heath Ledger and Julia Stiles.
Oh, the Joker thing.
And then it was like, oh my god, he looks exactly like the Joker when he did that. Like,
that's
completely.
There's a lack of respect in the way that he talks to people, and I'm concerned for how that plays out with Tayshia because he's playing nice now that he's been talked to by almost everyone on the beach around how he showed up, but it's a massive red flag in his manner of communication.
I also just am a little concerned about some of his behaviors, like the running. He'll be in a conversation and then like he runs to the ocean and he's like, "I caught a fish."
Very erratic.
Incredibly erratic, and I'm not quite sure what's happening, but it's not typical.
No, it's weird.
I want to just say a very happy birthday to one of our amazing viewers, Juanita. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
So glad you're here with us on such a special day. Would love to hear how you're celebrating, and just happy birthday. I hope today's magical.
So, we get to now focus again on Clay and Angela. Well, actually, mostly Clay and his thoughts about Angela. Or his ex-girlfriend, as he keeps referring to her as almost all the time.
Ooh, can I say one thing that
Totally.
just came up in the comments?
Totally.
Aaron says, I did notice a lot of the ITM footage they used for Tayshia when talking about why she likes JPJ was from when JPJ threw her in the pool early on.
Oh, so it's
There was a lot of splice editing these 2 episodes, like a lot.
The editors were, they either had no content or they were real bored going into this week because they went, especially in the second episode, Tuesday night's episode, very heavy-handed. So, we see, here's my whole assessment on the whole Clay situation. Clay feels things deeply. He has a difficult time communicating them.
Yes.
He doesn't operate well under pressure. And...
Emotional pressure.
Emotional pressure. Thank you. I'm sure... Well, and yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
emotional pressure.
because he can play foot, like...
Right. There's a different... Yeah, I guess there's a difference there. So he doesn't handle emotional pressure well. As we saw earlier in the season with that guy Christian and, like, someone else. And, like, he doesn't... It's weird. So... He didn't expect Angela to come on the show. We're very aware of that.
Wait, did Clay and Angela date? God. Is it hard to see your ex on the beach? Which is also a different show.
And also, her name is Angela. He says my ex-girlfriend 1,000,000 times.
Oh my God.
We all know her name. So this is it. I think that he broke up with her. They both agree on that. I don't think that it was handled well. I think there was some dragging out that didn't go very well communicated. I think that there were, he struggles with communication. We've seen that. There's a lack of boundaries being set and exact wants being expressed. All of these are totally understandable. But when all of it happens a bunch, it comes together in a really, really challenging situation for him, in which, obviously, production is going to put Angela on the beach. He keeps talking about, I didn't sign up for this, I didn't sign up. You signed whatever they wanted you to sign. The non-disclosure agreement and the contract that they sign when they go on this show, doesn't matter what you think. They're going to find out what will make you uncomfortable, and you will do it. That's like Garrett going bungee jumping with Hannah because he was terrified of heights. Did it anyway.
Matt Donald has a weak stomach and said he can't eat spicy food.
What's the first thing they do to him?
Spicy margarita date.
Right? There's just... I feel like Clay's surprised at what is very predictably happening. But the way that he talks about Angela, I don't know. To me, it seems like he's not over it as much as he is the same way. I think that he knows he broke up with her for the right reason. Right reasons. But I also don't think that he's over the relationship. And Nicole's manner of being is not helping reinforce his confidence because she is not confident in him and their relationship.
Or herself.
Because of Angela's existence.
So...
Okay, what do you think?
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree completely. Yeah. I said what I needed to say about it before. And then Chase comes down the stairs. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even asking Clay. Oh,
we did the conversation.
Sorry,
with Mike and Clay,
I was just reading the comments for a second. Okay, so Chase comes down the stairs. Chase McNerney, I think is his last name. McNerney, something like that.
Don't know.
He's from JoJo's season. He was top 3 in JoJo's season. I have not enjoyed him since that show. He is very good friends with Robbie Hayes, who was her final 2, like her second, who is a really big asshole. Yeah, he's not a good guy. I believe that they're also friends with James Taylor, not the amazing singer-songwriter, the redhead, curly-haired guy who is extremely misogynistic and a bit racist, and who was also on JoJo's season. JoJo had a really interesting batch of guys. Chad, Robbie, Chase. So I don't know a lot about Chase, but I do know that he was roommates with Robbie. He hangs out with him and James a lot. And I mean, frankly, we are part of the company that we keep. So
it's true. You're a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. So he walks down the beach, he reads his date card out loud and very confidently knows he wants to ask Angela and asks her right away to go talk and to go on the date. And then Clay starts crumbling even more and says, the fact that I'm subjected to her dating in front of me, oh, it's brutal. And then
He's
Nicole...
playing the victim.
He is. Nicole is on the opposite mode, saying that Angela is trying... She has some sort of plan. Nicole thinks that Angela has, like, a master plan and that she's trying to get Clay's attention. Which is clearly not what's happening, at least from the edit that we're seeing.
Unless Angela is secretly, like, an evil genius or, like a mastermind or, like, Ethan Hunt planning the perfect, like, Mission Impossible, get Clay over Nicole, I'm not seeing it.
No.
And it's mostly, this is what I've seen. Angela is on the beach, sipping cocktails, going to the pool, going on a date, doing her thing, and Clay and Nicole are there holding hands going, how dare she do that? She's just doing normal things. She's not trash-talking Clay behind his back from what we've seen. She's not trash-talking Nicole behind their back from what I've seen. They haven't showed us her really interacting with the two of them at all.
In fact, she sat down with Nicole, and they were fine. She's like, I'm not going to get in your way, whatever. So this is when we see Nicole and Tayshia start to make fun of Angela and like how she walked down the aisle. It's just too much.
This is high school?
It got a little bullying-y. I did not care for that. It's incredibly disrespectful. Angela did not do anything to warrant this. And yes, Natalie, she is also subjected to dating in front of him. Like, Clay is making it about him because he got there first.
Yep.
Which we all know the producers control who gets there when.
Right.
They don't control that.
No.
And Amelia, I agree. We'll get to that conversation in a minute.
Well, so Clay says something really funny and stupid at the same time, in my opinion. He's talking to some of the guys, and he's like, well, in real life, if you see your ex walk into a bar, you can just leave. I can't do that here. I'm stuck seeing it. Clay, I'm just going to let you know, you can leave. Like, you can go.
Like, go to your room?
No. You can also leave.
No, I know.
You can go, if she's at the bar, go to a daybed. If she goes to the daybed you're on, that's weird. Then you go to the bar.
Right.
Or go to the ocean. Or focus on your girlfriend. Really anything besides sit here and complain that Angela exists.
So Clay says, is it fair to Nicole if I can't separate this? She doesn't deserve to go through that. And my feelings around this is that if he were truly healed and had the internal closure that I mentioned earlier, he would not be horrified about this because Angela is watching him date Nicole right in front of her, and she is not sitting talking to everybody else about how horrified she is.
Just moping. And then Clay even openly considers leaving Paradise because he just doesn't really want to handle and deal with the situation. Which, this is the thing about him, is that I feel like he doesn't really want to have to deal with the ramifications of his actions more than what I think about Tayshia.
See, that's what I was going to say, is that's somebody who doesn't want to deal with the ramifications.
Because he broke up with her and he's like, it's done. And she's like, well, we haven't, like, talked out the breakup. And he's like, nope, I'm broken up.
Right.
And then now he just wants to... His conversation to the guys about you can just leave when your ex comes in, that is a clear indicator to the way that he avoids
He's incredibly
the more difficult things to deal with in life. Which, I mean, it is not fun to see a recent ex walk into the place that you're in. We've all been there. Or most of us have been. I've been there. But it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just leave if you want to. It's a little more complicated when you're on TV, I guess.
Yeah. It was just... And... You know, all Angela did... So, like, let's think about this very quickly from Angela's perspective.
Yeah.
She and Clay are dating. Okay? They start talking about kids, a house, this and that, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Clay says, hey, we're breaking up. I'm sure he said it better than that, but just for the sake of this reenactment.
Okay,
we're breaking up. And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, no, we're breaking up. So she gets broken up with,
Mm-hmm.
and then she decides, you know what? Clay may be on Bachelor in Paradise, but it's been a few months. I want to get mine.
Right.
So let me go try to find a person and get paid and get more exposure on TV. I can deal with my ex being there.
Right.
And then she walks in, and Nicole's like, she's got to have a plan. She's trying to take Clay back. And Clay's like, I didn't sign up for this. Blah, 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 blah. You broke up with her. You did. You signed up to watch Angela date other people when you ended the relationship. Whether it's on the same beach or through social media or on another Bachelor show. The minute that you ended that relationship, Clay, you signed up to see her with other people. Mm-hmm. That is how life is. It is so infuriating to me when people cannot take responsibility for their own decisions. He can be sad. You can say, it's really hard. Wow, I think I need more closure. Wow, I didn't realize how challenging this would be. But the things that he is saying, it's making himself the victim after he's the one that made the decision to break it off. Now, I am not saying that if you're the one to break it off, that it's just easy, right? We saw that with Tayshia. It's really hard to be the breaker-upper as well as the breaker-uppy.
Yes.
Yeah?
No, break-up-y.
Break.
No, break-up.
Okay, I digress.
Person broken
you
up
understand my point.
I do. And the one... You know what? Let's flip this for a second. Let's think about Angela's perspective. You know what really sucks? Going onto a TV show, or actually going anywhere. Let's take this off TV. Going anywhere to see a bunch of your mutual friends and like connections you know have been hanging out with your ex and his new girlfriend for a couple of weeks, and now you're there. You don't have as good of a connection with anybody there, and so everyone's staring at you with loaded expectations.
Right.
That's the hard thing. Not Clay.
She's in the hard position. Absolutely.
Clay is not in the hard position. All he has to do is to get a drink, sit on the day bed with Nicole. That's his life at this point. That's not hard.
If he had emotional closure.
Yes.
It is hard because he doesn't have that emotional closure.
He's doing it to himself.
No, right.
I feel poorly for Angela having to come onto the beach and then basically go to every single person and be like, I'm normal and fine.
Yeah.
I don't care. Let's hang out. Thank God someone new is here. We can go make out.
We cut to a commercial and we come back to Caelynn and Connor sitting on the beach where Caelynn tells us, I deserve this after the hell that I have been through. I deserve this. Regarding her relationship with Connor S. We're just going to...
I don't even know how to examine that because there is just so much that I disagree with.
Yeah.
So instead, we get a cut of Blake being sad and alone. Just in case anyone forgot, Blake's not doing great on Paradise.
So Clay is still freaking out and he sits down with Mike because Mike is the...
I feel like Mike
resident counselor of Paradise.
I feel like Mike instigated this.
Yeah. And Clay starts talking, and then Mike clarifies with him. He goes, I didn't want to come talk to you about Angela and I. I wanted to talk to you about Angela and you.
And Clay is like, whoa. That's
so
a good
then
point.
we cut to Angela and Chase at dinner, and we essentially have these cutbacks between Angela and Chase at dinner and Mike and Clay, where we're getting more of the story of the end of their relationship told between the two things going back.
Yeah.
And so it eventually ends with Mike saying that, you know, he thinks it's best for Clay to talk with Angela.
Yeah, clear the air.
Clear the air, which, like, yeah, duh.
Mike.
But Mike, seriously, like, good.
So
good job.
And
then Blake just continues to crumble.
We get a cut of everyone making out, and Blake's just head in his hands on the bar.
And this is when all of a sudden he's in an ITM. The music starts changing. And all of a sudden he's like, I realize that I have feelings for Christina. And it's always been Christina. She was right in front of me the whole time.
So, not glossing over the fact that sounds like the plot to a romantic comedy. I imagine Blake having this realization, real or not, I don't know, that he's got very strong feelings for Christina, apparently. The on-off switch that he has around this emotion, the thing that popped into my head was the way that, and I hate even saying his name again, that Luke P. said God talked to him in the shower. I imagine this is what happened to Blake. He was in the shower, and all of a sudden, he's like, oh my God, I'm in love with Christina. I feel like Luke P's divine intervention moment was also what Blake had about Christina, if what he's saying is true.
Are you saying that God talked to Blake?
If God talked to Luke P, then he can also talk to Blake about what they're going to do.
Or she.
That
also,
entity.
I don't like comparing Luke P to Blake in any way.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
even comparing their experiences makes me uncomfortable.
Okay, well, many people have claimed divine intervention.
But Blake did not.
The way that he turned around on Christina, something else must have happened there because
It's called editing.
He goes from, well, it's great editing too. He goes from head in his hands, miserable, to all of a sudden he's like hugging like his chest and he's like, that girl who I accused of ambushing me earlier in this season, thinks she's the one.
Yeah, and what the chat is spot on. He basically mimics When Harry Met Sally, which is like my favorite movie.
It's true.
But yeah, I don't think that the chat, like, I don't agree with that at all. I think that we got to see it happen on camera.
All right.
Not away, because like even just the acting out that you just did,
yeah,
was like him realizing.
Fair. So I did write down, I would be lying if it didn't seem like a Rose play with the timing of when we're being shown this. This may be editing interfering, but the turnaround was so sudden, I'm a little skeptical.
Well, yeah, I think we all are.
Maybe that's the intention of the editing. I think that Blake has been a fairly honest person, even through his trials and tribulations so far, so I'm hesitant to say that he's doing this for a Rose, because it seems out of character for him.
No, I don't think he's doing it for a Rose. I just
so?
don't think that he is fully, like, I don't know. After this long in Paradise, I don't think he's overtly lying.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he is fully in touch with what he's feeling.
So he approaches Christina with this, and
She's like, why are we walking?
I wrote, she's appropriately confused because I am also.
Yeah. So he says, I've been thinking a lot about you. And this, for me, was the first time that I got to see the Christina that we've known in other seasons. She was open, she was snarky and sarcastic, but also kind and funny. And this is the Christina that I knew and really liked before this season, so it was nice to see that. She giggles a lot in discomfort, and then in the moment interview talks about how she's super apprehensive and skeptical, which... yeah, I mean, that's a very fair reaction.
I am also.
So she says, talk to me tomorrow. I want more clarity because right now, hearing it for the first time, I just need time to process. I want to continue to have this conversation tomorrow to see if you still feel the same way, and then I can also have time to process. I think that is a great communication tool. Taking a timeout as an adult from a conversation is very, very important, and I thought that she expressed it in a really kind way.
I agree. We cut to the cocktail party, in which Blake continues to be all about Christina now, which is still happening. The cocktail party is basically, because everyone's in couples now for the most part, so the cocktail parties aren't people mingling. Everyone's just coupled out and making out with each other.
Yeah.
Except poor, sad Sydney, who wants to make out so desperately, and she is doing this weird thing with Matt Donald. I keep wanting to say MacDonald, just because, the association. It's difficult.
I'm sure he's heard that before.
You think? So she wants Matt to kiss her, but she isn't saying anything or doing much besides hoping he reads her thinly veiled approaches. This is frustrating for me because if she wants to do something, Didn't say it.
Which she eventually
does.
Which
but
then gets her the kiss.
Which she complains to Tayshia about. He's just not doing anything. And I'm like, well, if you went to him and said what you're saying to Tayshia, maybe then he would kiss you.
Yes.
Tasha's not going to kiss you. That's not what we're doing here.
Yes.
So
it felt very middle school-y. Like, Matt was going around to everybody, and they were all like, just do this way. Like, just do it this way. And I don't mean middle school-y in a judgy way. It was just, like, actually what middle school was like.
Or because the principal had to sit him down and make sure that he was going to be able to, like, exist when Chris Harrison apparently shows up and talks to Matt about, like, who Chris would be the principal in this high school or middle school comparison.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I really like Matt.
So now, of course, poor Matt is way more stressed out because now everyone's talking about it, which is definitely going to make him so confident, I'm sure. So he sweats a bunch. There's just this weird back and forth.
I wrote down Matt is probably the most normal person to ever come on the show, except for the fact that he's super ripped.
Yeah, we find out he's in crazy good shape, which wasn't evident initially.
No.
So they fumble around. He and Sydney finally fumble around for music and then kiss. And then production and the editing team just have a field day. Like, if I had looked away for a minute and not seen how this started, I would be so legitimately confused. Because there's a massive edit of horses getting up off the ground. I saw airplanes. I saw fireworks.
Rocket
I saw
ships.
Massive crowds of soccer fans, not American football. Or not American, like, it's actual football. Like, soccer fans were cheering. There was the Big Bang in space. There was a volcano going off.
It was really outrageous.
A lot. Just because the sweaty guy kissed the girl. Okay.
It was outrageous. So we cut to a commercial. We come back. Katie and Chris. Chris asks Katie to be his girlfriend. She says that her cheeks hurt from smiling. And yes, of course.
It was cute.
It was really cute.
Super sweet.
And then Clay pulls Angela to talk. And he starts telling Angela that he wasn't as far along as she was. And Angela tells Clay that she just doesn't see why they just can't coexist.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a wonderful question.
Yeah. Especially after everything else, too.
Yeah.
I did like how he's like, well, I just wasn't there. And he's like, so then why did 2 days before you broke up with me, you were asking about what our children would look like?
Uh-huh.
Now,
it was a great conversation.
People can change.
I wish we had seen more of it.
Yeah, people can change their minds. And I'm not saying that what he did with the children thing was wrong, but I will say that it definitely left her with a different impression 2 days before the breakup. It's normal, I guess. Anyway, so they coexist. They seem to say okay and like handshake on it, and they do move on.
But Nicole still thinks that Angela has some sort of plan.
Nicole is having a very hard time with Angela existing in general. It's weird.
Yeah. So cut to Caelynn eating with Connor and Blake.
And doing the funniest thing this episode.
Then Blake tells them that he's going to try things with Christina. And Caelynn is like, shut up. Oh my God. Ah. And Blake and Christina sit down to talk, again, for the second time. And she asks him why now. And he says, I buried it deep down because I was afraid. And Christina says she can't say that she's all in yet. She doesn't know how or if she can trust him.
Yeah.
And Blake says, you don't have to open the door. I just need you to unlock it.
Yeah. He seems to understand that she's got a long way to come for him to actually have a relationship with her again. And he wants to make things up little by little as they go. Which, it's pretty understanding for the situation that he put himself in. Like, he's pretty aware of where he stands. And if he really wants to be with her, he's doing it the best way he can, I think, at this point.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
All right, rose ceremony time.
So Nicole gives her rose to Clay, Angela to Chase, Christian to Demi, and they say, I love you.
It was sweet.
Oh. Hannah to Dylan, Katie to Chris, Haley to Luke S., who I completely forgot were both on the show.
Totally forgot them.
Caelynn to Connor S., Sydney to Matt, Tayshia to JPJ, and Christina to Blake, which means that Mike is going home.
Everybody hugs him so much.
And Mike says possibly the saddest thing I've ever heard on the show, which is, I'm the little kid that everyone says, oh, we love you, we like you so much, but I have to watch everyone else play outside through the window.
It's rough. So he goes home, we get a commercial, we come back to Blake flirting with Christina and trying to focus solely on her. And she's like, well, there's more girls going to be coming. He says he won't go on a date with anyone who comes. Bree shows up, and everyone seems to know who she is. Do you notice that? Even, like, the new season people? Yeah, because
they were at the wedding.
Oh, that's right. Because even John Paul Jones is like, oh, it's Bree. And I'm like, how do you know who she is?
Yeah, they all met at the wedding.
Got it. I always forget who's at the wedding.
They were all at the wedding.
Well, no, I get that now, but I'm like, I forget if anyone... Because there are other Bachelor people that were at... Okay. You know what? Thank God Tia's not on the beach, because then I would leave. So, I'm still annoyed. Anyway.
So, Christina is worried that Blake is going to go on the date. He obviously doesn't. And then she's like, yay, he didn't go. Trust is being rebuilt. Dylan and... Bree asks Matt Donald to go on the date. And Sydney says she hopes it goes really poorly.
Awesome, Sydney. I mean, okay.
Sure.
But still.
Then Hannah and Dylan are talking about what life will be like outside of the Paradise bubble. They talk about taking walks together, and that's about all we see.
Oh, no, I wrote down, Hannah's planning on moving to Cali, the way she says it, which as a California native drives me insane. Hannah's planning on moving to Cali so she can go on walks with Dylan.
That's what we heard. Because
she said, when I move to Cali, we can go on walks. Doesn't that sound amazing? It does. It's fine.
And Connor and Caelynn are each telling different people, Connor to Dylan and Caelynn to Hannah, that they really like each other and they're going to go to the Boom Boom Room. And of course, right as we hear them say that, Dean walks down the stairs.
I wrote, supercut of Dean shaving his mustache. Why is he back? It's the Dean show. Who cares?
Dean walks straight up to Caelynn and asks to talk to her. And he tells her that when he left, he couldn't stop thinking about her on the flight home. He rented a car and drove to the Grand Canyon.
What?
And then he wished that she was there with him. So he says, I know, I'll wait until she gets her phone back. And then he said that he realized that if they grew so quickly in a week, then she could be growing with somebody else that quickly. So then he came back. And she says, it's just been really easy with Connor. And Dean says, who the fuck wants easy?
So...
Everyone, Dean. Everyone wants easy.
So, I had not seen a lot of Dean on previous seasons before I started watching the show. A little bit here and there. I was aware of his character and the issues with Christina last Paradise or 2 Paradises ago or whatever. And I didn't mind him on the show, I guess, this time. I didn't love him in the way that he just was. This aspect made me dislike him. Why? Because, first of all, the format of the show has already been changed a little bit this season, but if you could just come and go, then what's the point of being at Paradise in the first place? If you go home, that's your choice. You don't get takebacks because, oh no, feelings are actually good now for you. Also, you flew home thinking about her, and then you rented a car and drove to the Grand Canyon so you can think about her more. This is just you regretting your situation and your own decisions. Like, can Derek come back and say, oh, now there's new girls on the beach, I have a chance? Honest question, though, because that's apparently what is happening here. That Dean can just come and go as he pleases, and then ask something that, frankly, I think is a little bit insulting.
Which is?
To have her leave the show with him for him. What?
Now, he does say one thing that I liked. And it had nothing to do with him coming back on the show. It had nothing to do with Caelynn. He said, if I continue to wait until I'm perfect to be in a relationship with somebody, I'll probably be waiting forever. That, I thought, was one of the more relatable things he's ever said. I think that we have almost all been in that situation where we are waiting to feel ready or waiting to feel perfect about something, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a new job, whether it's leaving a job, whether it's starting a bit, like, whatever it is, we're, like, waiting until we're ready or perfect for something, and we're not going to ever feel ready or perfect. Right. So I thought that was very insightful of him. Yes. I appreciated that from him. Yeah. What I don't like is he ripped into Paradise as though he had not been gone. And didn't really give any regard to anyone else or how this has affected other people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this could be editing. I wish that we could just see the raw footage of this stuff.
Right.
But if I'm Caelynn, I'm not only thinking for myself in that perspective, but I'm thinking, like, does he feel entitled enough to come back on here, disrupt everything after leaving in a way that was so hurtful and sudden?
It was my birthday.
And then saying, will you leave with me? Now, I understand what you're saying about the structure of the show.
Right.
I have come to just know that if it makes for good TV, the producers are going to not follow format. And if it doesn't, then they'll use format as an excuse to why they're not doing it.
Right.
That's just how it is. And I get that. So I'm not, like, surprised that he came back. Natalie makes a really good point. She says, I've always wondered if Dean is in therapy. I think his relationship with his dad and his background... Dad and his background affects him a lot, and he really needs to be working that out. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Janine says, I loved that he came back. Thank you for sharing this take. She says, and I feel like them leaving together would be kind of perfect for the relationship they'd be working for. Staying on the beach implies moving towards an engagement. That's a really interesting perspective, Janine. And that's true.
Yeah. No, I mean...
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, and again, that's the format of the show. However, even with Hannah and Dylan, I don't think they'll get engaged at the end, because even in this last episode, he's like, I'm really excited for a relationship with her. We're excited to move on in the real world. To me, they're not going to get engaged because they're not ready to. They just want to date. And I think,
don't know. They may.
We'll see. But there's one thing that Dean said that I didn't like about this. He says... He wasn't open to a relationship the first time he came on. Then why were you there in the first place?
Right.
So I'm annoyed at this because he's just getting a free pass from production to do whatever he wants. And as a viewer of the show, I'd like a semblance of fairness to be given to the contestants. And, like, I understand that production's going to put Angela on the beach to mess with Clay. I get that. Like, that's the show, right? But when a character can just come and go... I mean, is that not what he is? He's a character.
He's a person.
Yes, he is a person. I think... Okay, so he's a cast member, maybe a better way of saying it. When a cast member can just come and go from the show, it removes for me the weight of what actually happens on it. Because if this is supposed to be a foundation for relationships that can move forward to, as Janine said, move towards an engagement by the end of it, which I think that we're going to see Katie and Chris get engaged, because the way they cut in the last thing of, like, coming up, I think it's the two of them.
I agree.
But if that's the format here, that's the suggestion, it's the goal, allowing him, Dean, that is, just to come and go as pleased, I actually, for the first time, I feel bad for Caelynn in this.
Right.
Because if she really likes
Connor,
whatever Connor is, like
what?
Milk Toast Surfer Bro, I don't know, he could be really cool, but all we see about him is him just going,
I know.
What? And then, I like Caelynn. And then using very kind of elitist terms to trash talk Dean. Go back to your van.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, go to your van. Live your life that you enjoy, instead of saying it like you're a trash person.
Right.
Really weird.
No,
so,
I agree. And
it just, I don't know, I see the Dean stuff and I'm like, why?
So, and here, Amelia says in the chat, I think it's okay he came back. He did state that he debated on waiting until she got her phone back, but he thought he should go now before she develops a relationship. Here's my thing with that, though. And Amelia, I agree with you that, like, he can do whatever he wants. Ultimately, it's not up to all of us. However, he gave up that right when he left the show.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it gets sticky, is like, leaving put her in a position to find another relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So objectively, it's not fair to Connor for him to come.
Right.
I don't think that breaking format in itself is a bad thing.
No.
That's how we got Christian and Demi. It's how Janine mentions Nick Viall on Caelynn's season, right? Like 100%. But Nick didn't leave Caelynn's season and then come back on Caelynn's season.
Right, that's the issue here. This is showing zero regard for Caelynn as a person. Because if you choose to remove yourself from a situation, this is like going to a restaurant and ordering your meal and then having half of it and then just walking out the door without saying anything and then being surprised when they've cleared your table when you come back.
Yeah, you come back like 3 hours later and you're like, why didn't you leave my food there?
Right, and like, you know, and Nick has also been, like, Nick Viles navigated his own villain edits on and off of the show, and he's struggled as a result of it, and he's come out and saying very clearly, like, he's aware of what he's done, he's aware of his challenges, and he's trying to work through them. I see Dean is not really someone who's able to take that responsibility yet, because he's now fucking with Caelynn's existence, because he doesn't feel something. He's completely ignoring what she's doing.
So, two things. Janine says, I think I find the idea of rules in this franchise hard to fully get on board with.
Totally.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that on one point, people will argue, we can't break format. And then on the other hand, we're like, well, it's fine when this person does it.
Right.
So I think that we just generally, like, need to just come to the understanding that perhaps there are no rules.
Right.
But then that needs to apply to everybody.
Right.
And it's when the rules only apply to some people and not to everybody, that's when it gets murky.
Yeah.
And Amelia says, what if everything he's saying is true and he truly regrets leaving? That's fine. But when you left, you chose to leave.
Right.
So when the show is over, if we're holding by the rules, which I agree with Janine that, like,
the rules are
like totally at their discretion. There really are none.
Right.
Even though they will use the rules as an excuse when they don't want to do something.
Right.
He gave up his right to be there by saying, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So he can contact her afterwards, but he ran the risk of her finding somebody else when he chose to leave. That's a consequence of his reaction.
Right, and then having the audacity to ask Caelynn to leave the show to go off with him after he did, I make fun of her for the way she said it, after he broke up with her on her birthday, which I think society can agree is not a great move. As shown by the episode of How I Met Your Mother, in which Ted does this.
Which is why you think it's funny.
Well, right. But, so, he's showing so much disrespect for Caelynn by doing what he's doing here. Asking her to leave the show. It's disrespecting the relationship she's forming with Connor.
Yeah.
Her own decisions. And then it's, what life is she to expect with him as a result of this when he will go back on things that he said? Openly.
I mean,
it's something
so
that I would think about, because if I was her and I saw this person do this giant turnaround after really hurting me emotionally.
What, like 5 days? How long was that?
We don't know. I mean,
I would love to know. Does anybody know?
He said he flew to San Diego, so that takes about 2 hours from where Mexico is, or where they are in Mexico.
Like an hour.
And then, they have to get through security and customs, so 2.5 hours. And then, from San Diego to the Grand Canyon, that's like 15 hours or so of driving. Yeah. So it had to have been at least 3 days. That's all I got. So Dean was gone for a minimum of 3 days and then comes back. If I was Caelynn, I would be concerned for his patterns of sticking to what he's saying moving forward.
Yeah. And I think that the whole discussion point of this comes down to, do we want to hold to these old rules, and what rules are we willing to break in the Bachelor world, and what quote unquote rules are we not? Yeah. Right? So, like, breaking the rule of men handing out roses to women and women handing out roses to men because there are two women, that's like, we need to break that rule.
Right.
That doesn't mean that then we break all the rules.
Right.
However, is there anything wrong with breaking all the rules? Like, perhaps it's a bit more chaotic and people can come and go as they please.
Right.
In real life, outside of the Bachelor container, what Dean did was very normal.
Totally.
He freaked out about a relationship, went away and thought about it, and came back and was like, I'm sorry, I fucked up. Please, I want to try again.
Right.
That, out of the context of Bachelor world, that's like...
Totally.
That happens every day.
Too. Yeah, totally.
Because of the rules that the Bachelor franchise have constructed,
Mm-hmm.
that's why.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. I agree, Juanita. I don't love how Dean handled it, but I do think that they have a connection. I think that is very clear.
He's been gone 3 days.
Yeah, and Aaron says, do you agree with the group of girls saying Caelynn was projecting her feelings for Dean onto Connor? I don't think that she was projecting her feelings for Dean. I think that she was hella rebounding.
I think that she was happy to have...
a warm body.
Attention. Yes, we said the same thing in 2 different words.
Natalie says he was gone for 2 days.
Okay.
There was a Reddit thread with the timeline.
And we've been staying out of the subreddit previous to this show, so I'll go check it out later.
And Janine, I agree. I totally hear what you're saying. I don't think... Oh, Natalie says it was 4 days, according to the timeline.
Look at me. My hour estimation's pretty spot on.
So Janine says he invited her on one of his adventures. He didn't say, if you don't come, you're dead to me. I totally agree. It wasn't an ultimatum of life or death.
No.
I think that it is just very aggressive to come down onto the beach and say, hi, I know I dumped you. I came back. So you can either stay and continue what you were building with this other guy, or you can come with me.
Run away with me.
I wish if he had come back, and this is just personal, I don't know if anybody else thinks this, I wish that he would have just come back then. Come back to paradise.
Yeah.
Like
Chris could have walked him down.
Put on the bathing suit and, come back.
Like, Chris could have walked him down and been like, so sometimes in paradise you get 2 redemptions at love. Whatever. Make a thing out of it.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I think that, in the preview, we get to see what Caelynn decides.
Yep.
We see Demi crying, which...
Everyone cries.
Everyone is crying.
Everyone's
Chris
crying.
Harrison's voiceover says that, the couples are put to a test. So at the end of the day, regardless of if we agree or disagree on the rules of Bachelor Nation, I think one thing we can all agree on is that we want to see all of these beautiful people be happy, find their person, and just love. So I hope that we get some...
Do you think that Blake and Christina will work out?
Do you want my Bachelor fan answer or my couples therapist answer?
Both, obviously.
So as a Bachelor fan, I kind of want it to work out because I think it's cool to see the arc of what happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As a couples therapist, I'm deeply concerned for their well-being and just want to make sure that they have the tools to navigate this moving forward.
Fair enough.
What about you?
If they stay together, they will have some stuff to navigate. Due to him accusing her of ambushing him, her actually ambushing him,
her doing that.
The things that they've struggled with, her trash-talking him constantly behind his back, which he will see in the rewatch of this. I'm sure he has, which can't feel great, especially if they're together. God, could you imagine that? Going through the process, finding a relationship, being happy, and then watching the steps around how your relationship
if that be hell
get back together, and he sees all the shit she said about him. Oh man, I don't know. I don't really see them together personally. I don't, for whatever reason, I just don't see them dating. They don't seem like they match each other.
Blake and Christina.
Yeah, they just don't seem like they are together. I don't know. Maybe it's me.
And as far as the Caelynn and Dean thing, I think that at the end of the day, they just need to make the decision that's best for them. I think that how it all happens is going to be none of our business, right? If this is what they want, then go off and have a blast.
Do it.
That's okay. We're just here to talk about it and figure out what we all think. So at the end of the day, Dean coming back on Paradise does not change my life at all. No. I have no personal investment in this. I just want people to have happy, healthy relationships.
True that.
So that is the end of week 5 of The Right Reasons. We hope to see you next week. We'll be back at our normal time.
Yes, I said Monday. Oh my God, Wednesdays.
Yes, Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get notified when we go live.
If you're still here with us now, make sure you give us a thumbs up and drop a comment. We'd love to get back to you, and we love your support.
And thank you so much for all of your love on social, and even those of you who have written with some kind of mean messages. I had to breathe a little because I'm not used to getting these types of messages. But thank you, because the feedback is helpful, even if it's hard to read sometimes. So thanks. So hit that thumbs up, friends, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.